Gump report number 2. I just did my Gump report on the release of the 23 wrestlers. I only had 19 on my list, and I talk about maybe about 10. 8 or 10 easily. Over 40 minutes. Oh my gosh, I didn't want to do 40 minutes, but I did 40 minutes. This now is about Vince. About the meeting that he did. And the true trouble we're going to have in WWE. Because I'm telling you right now, I've heard what JD said about Vince possibly being ousted. Because I did watch his video. I could not find any information about because I know that he got his information way ahead of anything that's been written, or he got information from somebody else. I looked across 5 sites. I didn't see it. Doesn't mean it wasn't there. I just couldn't find it. But this is what happened. They had a staff meeting. They had everyone there, and Vince was at the staff meeting along with Triple H and Nick Khan. Now, supposedly Vince came in with a cane. He has only been a few months removed from his major spinal surgery. So I'm not surprised he's walking with a cane. Does not mean that's permanent. It's just he's walking with a cane. But he came up to the podium. Supposedly everyone was very stoic, but he said, "Cheer for me." Joking with them and say, "You should be cheering for me." Joking around, and everyone tried to cheer up. And then he said his piece. He said, right now, generally speaking, I'm not saying it for word. I'm not. I'm not JD, and I'm not just Alex. I'm telling you what my impressions of what he said. He said that the company is now fully merged. TKO Group Holdings exist. We now are a conglomerate of UFC, from Endeavor. We now work together. Don't worry, everything's going to be fine. But I have to say this now because I know a lot of you are questioning, why did we do the merger? Vince said simply, WWE was getting stagnant. We needed something. We needed a pep in our step. We needed this merger to become better, to go to the next level. And from what was stated by JD, and I did see a little bit of a story about when they did have the meeting. A lot of people were not fond of that meeting. They believed he was lying through his teeth. Because when Vince had been removed from his being the head of WWE, the chairman, promotion became number one again. Now, what do I mean by that? Before Vince left, because of the allegations and the probe from the FBI, and the internal probe as well, because the FBI was doing a probe, and WWE corporate was also doing a probe to find out what happened to the money that was lost, almost $20 million, which disappeared, I believe. When he left, when Triple H took over, because Nick Khan and Steph made it very clear, we're both co-CEOs, Triple H is going to be in charge of creative. For that 9 months, I'm saying it again, 9 months he had. April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. 9 months. Because before Vince left, in July, he was already dealing with what was going on with the company. He was. Because Vince left around July. But Triple H, before then, was doing more work due to the fact of the allegations. He was having to deal with it more, and that was Vince. But I'm not saying Vince wasn't still in charge. But clearly, he was in charge, and that was Triple H. Now, like I said in my general release video, I'm not saying Triple H was great. He had issues. His pacing was too slow in some cases. He started certain things and then stopped them abruptly. He tried to start stuff and see if it would work, and either it did work, but then had to be taken to the wayside because of something else. It was 9 months that he had the opportunity to try and change the product. And one, the attendance at every arena went up again. Not by a little, but by a lot. Due to the fact that the changes of how the wrestling was, how the vid packs were done, how the storylines were being done, how the merchandise was being sold. Everything had been changed. how Triple H and Nick and Stephanie was running the company. I'm not saying that it was perfectly run, but due to the fact that everyone knew Vince was not there, his daughter, Nick Khan, and Paul Levesque, Triple H was running it, things went up. But then, by December, when Vince forced his way back, to the point, and understand, he told them in December, you better have me come back, because I own 80% of the stock in this company. You will have me back, because I'm selling the company. When that happened, Stephanie resigned and left WWE completely. 2 other board of directors who were working on the inner probe about Vince, they up and quit. And then when Vince came back, he fired 3 more people and then put all the people he wanted in place until now with the merger, where the remaining people he had just brought back in, they're also gone. So now, this is what we got. We got a company that legitimately had increase in sales, increase in stock, increase in attendance, and an increase in pay-per-views before Vince took over. And now, after the merger, as you already know, over 100 people have been fired, or, released. For the wrestlers, for the other people, they've probably just been flat out fired. Unless they have contracts, then they're going to be released. And now, we had Vince go to a staff meeting and lie through his teeth to his own staff, that most of them who are probably gone now, or about to be gone, that the company really needed to have this done. Now, what I've heard, what JD has spoken about, was that Vince, being a member of the board of directors of WWE, in other words, he is currently the executive chairman of WWE, of the board of directors. He's also, from what I understand, the executive chairman of TKO Group Holdings. He holds 16% of the stock, which I do believe that JD said is over $260 million or $20 million. I can't remember how much it was. But Vince now, it's $3 billion he has. He has a tremendous amount of money and a tremendous amount of influence in both WWE and the parent company now, TKO Group Holdings. He has 2 positions, one WWE, one in TK Group Holdings, and because of how this is structured, because he's an executive chairman, when you look at UFC, he can now also give input. Doesn't mean he controls it. He now can put input to Dana White's product. And the board of directors there, along with Emmanuel, from what is being rumored, realized because of what was going on with Vince, that literally they understood, look, Emmanuel has been friends with Vince for years. That has not been a lie. But I'm sure Emmanuel realized that one thing that Vince wanted when he sold the company was he wanted to be in a position where he can run it. And Emmanuel made it clear in an interview, at least 1 or 2 interviews easily, that Vince is under contract. He is the executive chairman. And I'm generally going to let him run WWE because he knows what he's doing. He's a genius. Now, mind you, I did understand that Emmanuel's own daughter is now part of the company itself, and I believe part of creative. And a lot of people would say, well, you see, Emmanuel's not going to let him do whatever he wants. It's not the point. The reason Vince did this, and what people do not want to hear, Vince was tired of having to deal with any type of problems from the board of directors, from any of the wrestlers, because even though he is the chairman, he doesn't have to deal with any type of little tedious problems of contracts, and he can still do it, to when it comes to merch or any type of problem. And then, particularly with the sexual appetites, guy 77 years old still getting a hard dick. Either he's got Viagra or Cialis or whatever it's called. He pretty much, with what he did for many years, we already know, He took money that was in the company that he owned, went and fucked some women with it. And then when the scandal came out, he paid them off to shut their mouths up. But when he went corporate, because when he was private, he could do whatever the hell he wanted. No one's going to say anything. It's him against them. When he went corporate and started doing the same thing again, that's illegal. That's embezzlement, if I believe. Embezzlement. What is it, embezzlement? I believe you can't take money and just give it away without a reason. You got to give it. You got to file information, taxes, and stuff like that. He just used the money and gave it to people, which was the company money, not his own personal wealth. The company has his own wealth. He has his wealth. And he used this instead of this. That is why the probe has happened. I think it was almost $20 million. I think. I don't remember how long it's been. I think it's 19 million or near 20. I could be wrong. But he got sick of it. And when he was told, you need to leave because this scandal is going to hurt WWE, he went home and he said, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going to sell the damn company. And I am going to tell them when I sell it to you, I have to be in charge on your behalf. And that's what happened. That's what we got here. And now I've heard just Alex and JD literally say that when Vince is gone, the company's going to be better off. No. Nope. They don't see the true picture here. I believe I'm right. Now, if I'm wrong, fine. If WWE grows much better, much bigger, and doesn't have the issues I believe that's going to happen, I'm more than happy to eat crow. Because I care about pro wrestling. I want to see people work. I want to see the companies grow. I want to love pro wrestling. I want good storylines. I want good wrestling. I want good merch. I want good attendance from these places. I want to know the wrestlers are going to be all right. I want to know if the fans are going to be happy. That's what I want. But what I see here is going to be mostly a duplication of what happened with WCW and Ted Turner. I'm telling you right now. This is what I think is going to happen. This is my point of view. You could say, dude, you're wrong. Fine. But I'm saying it right now. I said this in a previous video. I'm saying it now. It does not matter how long Vince stays there. I'm saying it now. It does not matter if he stays the full 2 years of his contract or 5 years and then passes away or gets sick with stroke or have a heart attack or he just becomes so senile they have no choice but to remove him. It's not the point. 100% doesn't matter. What matters is who's going to fill the position that he leaves behind. Executive chairman of WWE is the person who's the in-between TKO Group Holdings and everything below. If Manuel doesn't ask for any orders, the person who's in executive chairman position is the one who makes all the decisions for the company, not just the day-to-day operations, to make sure the lights work, make sure catering gets food, make sure the trucks are working correctly, make sure the merchandise is done, advertising is done, networks are talked to, and yes, I do know, if anyone says it, I do know that SmackDown is moving to USA again in 2024, and Raw and NXT are probably going to be moved off USA and go to some other place. We don't know where they're going yet. The bidding's already begun. We don't know, but we know flat out SmackDown's leaving Fox and they're ending up on USA where it's supposed to be what? A near $3 billion deal or $2 billion deal? More than what they got originally from Fox. It's going to be bigger on USA. That's what's going on with that. So I do know. So don't say, dude, you know about you know about USA now going to have SmackDown. Yes, I do. And if anyone says, dude, do you know, then say, watch the video. Can you not hear my words? Unless you don't speak English correctly or understand English, leave a comment and say, well, English is not my first language. Fine. If English is not your first language, say it below. And you know who you are, my friend. The one who always leaves a comment. If English is not your first language and you're trying to talk to me the way you were, fine. But if you can understand my English, 100%, you're acting like an idiot. And I'm not being disrespectful to you, but you are. because you're asking silly questions that are answered in this video and others. But, I know. But this is where it comes down to. Going back to what will happen when Vince leaves. Guys, what happened to WCW? What happened? There are several reasons why it fell in 2001. WCW collapsed along with all the other pro wrestling promotions in the mid-80s due to the fact of competition from WWF. If you don't know history, when Vince purchased WWF from his dad and turned to the WWF, he decided in the early 80s, when I was maybe 12 or 11 years old, back in 1982 or 83, before WrestleMania 1984 to 85, he decided to go head-to-head across the country with all the other regional promotion, because WWF, that's what it's called then, before it went to WWF, Worldwide Wrestling Federation, that's what it was called. He decided, after he purchased it from his dad, to literally go head-to-head with every company that existed from the East Coast to the mid-area to the West Coast. He went up against them all. He literally used cable. Remember, back when I was born, there was no cable. There was just over-the-air radio waves. By the time I turned 10 or 12, when I turned about 9 or 10, back in 1978 or 9, or 1980, cable became available over a cable wire. Instead of over-the-air transmissions, you finally get something that's much more clear-cut. You can see everything. All the companies, all the networks were formed. CNN was formed because of cable. It's all because of that. Cable news network was CNN. That's what CNN started with. Cable news network. But Vince went up against everyone. And because he kept beating them with superior wrestlers, superior television, storylines, merchandise, the entire wrestling industry collapsed. And that's what happened at WCW. WCW collapsed, and that's when Turner decided to buy it. At a very low market discount, probably. But when Turner bought it and put his entire Turner network and TNN, TBS, TNT, around that time, TNT I believe was just beginning to come around, he propped up that company and he made sure it had money and it had prominent time on his networks. But he wasn't a wrestling promoter. He wasn't. And more than that, the person who took over the day-to-day operations of, how can I say this? I believe it was Watts, who was the last person who was an official wrestler and wrestler promoter who ran WCW. But when Turner took over, Watts was removed and Eric Bischoff took over, who was not a wrestling promoter, who was not a wrestler. He never managed anybody. He never wrestled. He never reffed. He was a business. He was a major in business. And he took the best things he knew about business and the parts that he learned while in the wrestling business, and he managed to get WCW to beat WWF for 83 weeks. Flat out. WWF to WWE was not able to beat him. No. But due to the fact that Eric Bischoff and a Ted Turner are businessmen, Eric Bischoff working on behalf of Ted Turner, who's a major businessman who had a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, they didn't fully understand you should not pay your wrestlers too damn much. You should pay attention to what's going on with the product, because a lot of cases people get frustrated with that. And then worse yet, when you own a multi-billion-dollar business, whatever happens here in that multi-billion-dollar business affects the wrestling promotion. AOL, American Online, they were trying to purchase it. And for what I remember, they did purchase. There was a lot of issues, and the entire thing collapsed. Eventually, Ted Turner, who lost billions of dollars, almost went into bankruptcy until he sold the company. And then he let Vince McMahon buy WCW for market value like it did back in the 80s when Turner bought it. This is what's about to happen. Please listen to what I'm saying. I do believe I'm right unless they put, and this is what I'm saying. Listen to my words, everyone, please. This is the deal. If Vince leaves by the end of 2026, because he's now currently under contract with TKO Group Holdings through Emmanuel. He's got a contract for 2 years. 2026, I think the beginning of 2026, probably be when his contract would expire, because it's the middle of 2023. And I do believe halfway into 2026, it will be over. That will be roughly, counting on how they do the contract. I don't think it'll be 2025. I think it'll be maybe the edge of the end of 2025 into 2026. That's why I believe it will be, his contract will be over if he didn't stay, counting on with the next 2 years, either because he gets sick, because of the subpoena by the grand jury where he will have to eventually go in front of them, and if he is found to be liable to go and have a trial in front of the grand jury, they will stop him immediately. Sorry, I forgot. I left an alarm on to remind myself to actually do the videos. But, as I said, either because of the grand jury and the subpoena where he be brought in to do an inquiry to find out if he is liable to go to trial in front of a grand jury, or he gets sick, or they find that something else is going on with Vince McMahon, that the board of directors, which is now still controlled by Emmanuel, Ari Emanuel, I believe his name is Ari Emanuel, that he believes that Vince is a liability because, just like JD said, there's a possibility that they realize he's a liability because of the government probe, because of how he acted during the probe, how he's been positioning himself so he can have total control of the product as much as possible, because of course they noticed. And his daughter's probably telling him, Dad, this is how it's going right now, the way Vince is running it like a damn tyrant. They may get rid of him. But, and this has been long-winded, so I'm sorry, I had to explain it to those who would not understand. When Vince is gone, whether because of health, federal situation with the grand jury, or something else that the board of directors that's newly formed realizes Vince is a liability and they get rid of him, the question's going to be, who would they put in his place between Emmanuel and the WWE? There has to be someone that's going to be the executive chairman. There's got to be someone on behalf of the company. If they do not put someone in there who understands pro wrestling to a certain extent, we are going to have another WCW on our hands. The only difference will be the competition isn't there yet. Look, whether you love AEW or Impact Wrestling or MLW, we got this: AEW, Impact, MLW, NWA, New Japan Pro Wrestling, maybe Pro Wrestling Noah. All of them are here. All of them are all down here. But what if they put someone in there who cares more about business than the wrestling business, sees only money instead of how you cater to wrestling fans? Because if they put someone there that has no understanding of how wrestling works, no matter how much anyone's going to say, dude, he's got people under him, it doesn't matter. If that person, male or female, takes that position and says, well, I don't like how this is. I want this, I want this, I want this. And it don't work, you're going to have a major situation on your hands, just like what happened with Ted Turner dealing with Eric Bischoff, and once money became more important than pro wrestling. Because that's what it all came down to. Whether you want to admit it or not, once the AOL deal collapsed, Only thing that could have kept WCW going was proper management. And so many wrestlers have said that Eric Bischoff did not run the company correctly. They were literally giving huge money out to people who didn't need it. They were not paying others that, when it came down to it, there were some type of problems, the accusations, and with even court appearances. I don't remember which type of court appearances. There were at least a few of them, of some type of situation during WCW's time. And because of mismanagement of WCW, eventually Vince bought it. Here, in this situation, unless AEW, Impact Wrestling, MLW, or New Japan Pro Wrestling comes up and challenges WWE, we will find a huge mess on our hands, where if TKO Group Holdings has a major issue, remember, this is a brand new company. Money is currently not the most biggest thing yet because they got a lot of it. But if Group Holdings malfunctions in any way by Emmanuel not being able to run it properly because it's a brand new company, it's a merger, we're going to have problems with WWE because they're going to have to prop up that company with WWE. And if they don't put someone in there who understands the wrestling business in the executive chairman position on the board, that they care only about money and not about catering to the wrestling fan, we will find a collapse of WWE. If they put someone there that can understand how the wrestling business works enough while they're doing business, making money, making merch, making advertisement, they'll be fine. JD and Just Alex don't get that. I see it. It's happened already, once already. Look at what happened with Impact Wrestling TNA. When Jeff Jarrett and his dad could no longer run it, who did they get? The Carters. And what happened with the Carters? Dixie Carter and her family ran that damn thing into the ground. They were a viable second option. They were so hot. And then it was a disaster to the point where Dixie had to sell it to Anthem, where WWE and Impact are exactly the same way they are now. Impact Wrestling is owned by Anthem. And as many times as I've heard people, Anthem's a multi-billion-dollar business. Multi-billion-dollar businesses can go under. Anthem does not give Impact Wrestling a huge budget to work with. They give them a certain allowance. And then the rest has to be filled in by Impact by themselves through their merchandise, through their attendance from any place they go, and as well, and this is the most important thing, the networks they're on. Understand, yes, Access TV is mostly owned by Anthem, but they may own it, but Anthem does not 100% run how Access TV works. It is an entirely separate division. So even though they're both the same company, one is paying another part. It's still about Impact making its own money. And if TKO Group Holdings has an issue here, and UFC is not cutting it, they're going to go to WWE. And that's if WWE does not have a major issue with this situation, because I'm telling you right now, this could happen. WWE, when it has a mismanaged, how can I say this to make it quick so I can end this? Because I've been talking a while. When Vince is gone, and let's say they just put someone who is a football manager, well, not who owns a book. How can I say this? Look, we know on the board of directors there's some people who own football teams and own businesses. If they throw one of them in Vince's position and they have no clue how wrestling is, and they don't leave it to the staff to deal with it because they want to throw their own input in, we will see the product go from here to here very quickly. And there will be nothing that the staff would do. Triple H will not be able to tell the new executive chairman what to do. He can advise him, but if they don't listen, like when it comes to Nick and Triple H could say, you can't do it this way. And they say, I don't care, we're running it like this. And it runs it in the ground, what do you think is going to happen? I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but that's what could. And this is the end of the gump. I've been talking too long. I hope you enjoyed the second one, which I believe I'll be releasing Sunday. Peace.